What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's me, Concordant TCG. And if you do watch this full video today on OTT, I guarantee you it will be the only OTT G-Wave 1 support video you guys will need to get started playing OTT and clapping people with Silent Tom in your strides. With that being said, there'll be timestamps below so you guys can skip the parts you don't need and really just dig in on all the meat and potatoes that you need to get your OTT journey started and or continued. Of course, if you do skip around, make sure you leave a like or drop a comment. It really helps with the video and helps push it through the YouTube algorithm. And of course, before we get any further, we have to talk about where is OTT right now. Of course, it is not Blade Master or the Cross. It doesn't do a million attacks like Silver Thorns or even Victor. What this deck excels in is it's very toolbox in nature. You draw a lot of cards, so you're going to see most of your pieces. It allows it to stay very defensive and also gives it offensive options. This isn't going to be the end all be all saint of the meta, but if you enjoy playstyles like this, I think this could be the clan for you. And to touch on Silent Tom very shortly, a lot of people have been cutting Silent Tom. Yes, Heal Guardians are annoying, but if you take out Tom, then you not only have to push through Heal Guardians, but you also have to push through PGs. So maybe we do drop Tom's count in the long term, but I do think that Tom is still a very potent finisher for the deck, and it's still super strong. You guys will still be playing your Toms, and if you don't own Tom, that's okay. Your Susanoo crit on GB2, or your triggers you trigger, or just really big beefy rearguard columns might just be enough to push for lethal. With that being said, guys, let's get into it. Talk about the strides. If you guys want, you guys can pause the video and kind of read the explanations. Long story short, the strides are good for OTT, but they're a little slow. Kieran needs to be on hit, and Take Mikazuchi is a GB2. I really don't think it needed to be GB2. That being said, I think they added great quality of life changes to a lot of the deck builds, and I especially like both Kieran and Take Mikazuchi and Tsukuyomi, as it adds alternative ways to dig into the deck rather than using the Suk skill and kind of gets around damage denial. It really adds a new breath of fresh air to that archetype. Next, we're going to talk about grade 3s. So Susanoo and Orihime, most people are probably just going to take the Susanoo from the support, but I think it has one of the best stride abilities in the game right now. It just allows you to +1. It's got a nice GB2 crit, which helps push. So both great skills. Overall, I do really like this card. It's an alternative finisher for a lot of these OTT decks that may have not had a finisher outside of Tom. Because Tom is weaker, that crit does give you a lot of value, especially against opponents that like to heal. And of course, Orihime is a very nice counter pick, but it's just weird. Amaterasu's 10k base, it never feels good drawing into it, but overall I do like Orihime as a card. In the grade 2s, I just want to talk about 2. So we have the Kuroi Kazuchi, and it offers a CB1 draw. I do think that our double rare Libra in the OTT support is a little bit stronger. Libra is CB2, or in the case of Magus, you're playing Stellar Magus. But in the case of Libra, I think it is a little bit more expensive. But you can counteract that by playing more counter charge. The only issue with this grade 2 draw support is that it needs to be on hit, which you can't always finesse. And of course, we do have a 12k attacker. And the support, I feel like it's probably one of the weakest just because it needs to hit Van. It feels really awkward. Mocha still feels a little inconsistent depending on which deck you're fighting against, but I think Mocha is still the most consistent big rearguard swinger that OTT has right now. And then of course we have the grade 1s, which I want to talk about the stride fodder. If you have space in one of your lists, you probably should play it just because it's gonna free cost, or it makes the cost cheaper. And then Able Neil is amazing for Imperial Daughter. Imperial Daughter is not my favorite strategy from the OTT clan overall, but I do think that if you do like that slower play style, Able Neil is just really good. It helps scale with your 10k base rear guards, and it doesn't need to hit unlike our prior bouncers, making it a more flexible piece. You're always going to have soul with Imperial Daughter to use its GB1 cost. So overall, I really like this card. Really helps out the archetype. And then finally, we have grade 0s. There's of course the Heal Guardians that we got as well. Like, I didn't want to talk about those because I felt those were pretty important. And you probably are going to be playing them anyways, but specifically the grade 0, the new starter, Hahiki, is a great alternative aggressive choice for Susanoo builds, just allowing you to just get an extra card when you're in GB1. This basically turns your Susanoo stride into a +2, which is just really nice. You see 3 new cards and they active striding, which is super good. You filter 2 to the bottom. That's definitely stonks. And of course, No is good because it goes back to the deck. It synergizes really well with Imperial Daughter. If you do play stands, I like to play crits and be a little bit degenerate, but I think that this card's really good. It's good in witches. It's good in pretty much everything as long as you have the space. So this is my take on Tsukuyomi. Just kind of like what we've seen from the meta, what we've seen from JP, what I found in testing. And so basically, kind of to sum it up, you have your stride fodders in place of your 8Ks now, just because you want to actually go into Takemikazuchi. You want to see the Kirins, because they are alternative ways to dig outside of using the Suk skill. So that is very nice. We like it. Everything else is pretty standard. We're just playing countercharge PGs just in case the game goes a little bit longer. These help out, and you can't complain. These are just really good. In the grade 2s, most of Suk hasn't changed. We tech Red Eye now because the meta's a lot faster than it was when Suk was a very dominant deck. It's still good, just not, tier 1. And so just getting that extra soul charge means you don't have to rely on the ride line when it fails you. And of course, changes we made to the grade 2s or the grade 3s is the Susanoo. It's just an alternative finisher, since otherwise you'd probably be playing Amaterasu or a pentagonal Magus, and I think this is just your easiest way to push extra damage since the deck already draws a ton, especially with the new strides. And of course we had Heal Guardians here because they're really helpful in the Gear Chronicle matchup, which there's always a matchup that's really hard for this deck, whether it be like golds or gears in a meta. It just really depends on what that big aggro deck is. And then of course in the G zone, yes, Takemikazuchi. If you have 4 of these, you should play 4 Takemikazuchi. I'm broke, I can only get 2. But frankly, this card is so good for Suk. Since a lot of people aren't playing Suk right now, it's not being talked about, but I do think it has a lot of value in this deck. So here is my take on Battle Sisters. So Editor Coco here. The first list I gave you guys was a little whack. It wasn't bad, but it required you to high roll. This is a little bit more consistent, and I wanted to make sure that you guys had a really good starting place. Again, if you wanted to see my G-Zone explanations, you can either go to the stride section of the video, or you can go to the Tsukuyomi section. The starter is really nice just because it's really aggressive. You can call a Kokoa from the top of the deck, or you can call like a grade 2 and it's going to get that extra 2k. It's going to help you push columns, especially against decks like Neo Nectar, which I actually found was kind of difficult to pilot, especially if they're playing the big like wall version where everything's like 14k 17k rear guards on your turn. I still like the stands. In the grade 1s, we do have the stride fodder, but if you're finding that you're not able to get enough Battle Sister names on board, you can cut this for your self pingers like we used to play. But I do like this since striding is just really good. Triple drive is extremely good, so we play it for that reason. In the grade 2s, I really want to play more Silent Toms, but the deck is very xenophobic. And requires you to have a lot of Battle Sister names on board, usually 3 to 4 to get your skills off. So we can't fit more space for Toms, but if you do feel uncomfortable with this count, you can increase it or you can decrease it. I feel like Battle Sister and Imperial Daughter are the only 2 deck variants where you don't need to play Tom. So it's definitely that budget player's paradise, although everything is a double rare. In the grade 3s, we have the Mire Feud, which is that alternative ride that isn't Susanoo, it isn't Fromage, and still fulfills the Battle Sister name. It's not here because it's really good. It's here because it is the second best option. Cookie is 10k base. Your Mocha or your Monica is a 11k base. Your Geely is Legion's good, but it's 3 CB. This feels the least awkward. You'll notice that a lot of the Battle Sister issues is all their effects, the grade 3s at least, activate on Vanguard. And so you don't get much value for playing them on rearguard except for I have a Battle Sister name. So keep that in mind. Also, take this list with a grain of salt. There's a billion ways to play this deck. Either you play 9 draw or a lot of crits or stands or kind of like a mix like how I'm playing it. It's really up to what you want. So go crazy with Battle Sisters. Let's get back to the regular scheduled program. Is stall fans? You're a stall fan? This is for you. Yeah, we have Imperial Daughter, so Susanoo plus Imperial Daughter. There's a lot of ways to play this. I personally like the monkey brain gameplay of just hit crit when they don't call rear guards and go crazy. I just really like that playstyle. But there is also the alternative. Different Fight does have a video where he talks about a 9 stand build, which makes use of this trigger, which we talked about earlier in the video. It's really good as well. It's just because you're not drawing cards as aggressively in this build, since you kind of want to sometimes go for deck out, getting that Battle Sister Mocha to 11k while maintaining a hand and board for your Imperial Daughter can be difficult. If you can navigate that though, I think it works. Go for it. Important cards to talk about. Stride Fodder. This deck actually really likes to stride because sometimes sitting on Imperial Daughter or swinging with Imperial Daughter doesn't give you value. Able Kneel, better than our prior bouncers. In Soul Blast, you always have the soul, and you don't need to hit, so you can even put this behind Vanguard, so it's very flexible. Black Cat, deck out kind of good, so we play it. And then grade 2s, we play a bunch of 10Ks. Tom is, I don't even know if you really need Tom, maybe 1 Tom, maybe 2. You don't need a lot. You could try playing the AK that becomes a 13k on your opponent's turn. It's just not consistent. And if you don't draw your kneel or your stand trigger, it's not going to hit anything and you will miss out on the Imperial Daughter skill. So it's just easier to play a bunch of 10Ks and go burr, but otherwise play at your own discretion. And then grade 3s, Imperial Daughter, Susanoo, yep. 1 copy of No because I really like the crits in this deck, that's all. But this is pretty good just in case I whiff kneel, because I did lose some games because I whiffed kneel. And then yeah, the G-Zone the same. If you have 4 Taki Mikazuchi, play 4 Taki Mikazuchi. Okay, so here's the Magus variant. This one's okay. I think this one out of all my lists probably has the most room for adjustments in growth, but did at least want to give you guys a starting point since I do think that Stride synergizes extremely well with this deck. So let's kind of talk about my thoughts on it. Stride Fodder is really good. You need to sometimes confirm the top cards, so your Kokoas are going to be pretty on the ball with what you need, and so we also play Battle Sister PGs. Your Stellar Magus plus, you know, a couple of copies of the Briolette Magus will kind of help you draw, go through the deck. Also really nice. And then we have some Silent Toms and some Mochas because they help hit numbers, and Tom helps finish for games, even if they have Heal Guardians. How often is your opponent going to have 4 Heal Guardians in hand? And then in the grade 3s, we added Susanoo over the Pentagonal because Susanoo's crit is a little easier to trigger in this current meta, but we still have the Floral Magus because I think it adds a lot of flavor. It's going to help you draw cards, and if you have a bunch of CB that you just need to burn, it's a great way to burn through your CB and try to draw. And of course we play a couple of the no stands because, well, it's good and it pluses you a card, so yeah. Most of the time in most of these non-Suk, non-Imperial Daughter lists, you're gonna probably want to sit on your Susanoo as much as possible. Heal Guardians and of course Strides here, you know, big wins. You like this deck as well. Okay, so lastly here is my favorite list, not because it's strong, but because I was able to find a list that I could play Amaterasu in and make it work, so I found that pretty cool and I wanted to share that with you guys. So this is a 4 draw 5 stand build using this new starter Hahiki, which is basically only good if you go second. If you go first, there's a lot of strats that can kind of blow this up in the back and make you feel bad, but if they don't blow this up and they go for your like intercepts, that's still pretty cool for you because then you get the +2 on your stride, and we like that. We like drawing cards. We play 4 Tom here. I know this looks a little weird. Why 4 Tom? Because my win con here is to play double Tom, so Tom on the left, Tom on the right. Legion with my Orihime, putting back all the stand triggers I can, maybe a heal trigger or 2, and then just swinging big and hoping to trigger double stand or like some form of like stand plus trigger or no trigger. That usually is enough to close out games because most decks can't consistently find 3 to 4 heal triggers a game to like add in hand. Mocha is super consistent for just getting extra power in the rear guards, makes it really easy to scale since a lot of our boosters aren't 7Ks. I do not play the grade 2, the Kuroi Kazuchi, because it's just it has to hit Van and this doesn't. It's a little bit more expensive, but I like hitting rear guard and drawing cards, so we take that. This is searchable by the Legion, so we don't need to play a lot of these. It's just for the Legion turns to have those big rear guard column swings. I think the gray ones are pretty self-explanatory. You need to confirm the top card of the deck for your Legion, so we play a couple of these. It also helps dig. Lemonades for countercharging, because sometimes you don't Legion and you don't have countercharge, and it hurts. PGs and Stride Fodder is pretty self-explanatory. I like this deck a lot. I like all of these decks, and I think they can kind of help find whatever playstyle you're looking for. Anyways, guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, but only if you enjoyed at least one part of the video today. Also, if you made it this far, type Silent Tom is king in the comments or something like that to let me know. You guys are, absolutely goated. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching the video. Peace out.